Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special episode of The Bucket Bros. I'm your host today, Bobby Marcico. As you can see, I am flying solo. Sorry I have been absent for seemingly forever. A couple weeks ago, realized that my full time job was getting in the way of my basketball obligations, and so I came to my boss and told him I was quitting. And they looked happy about it. Yeah, they even had the paperwork already made up. Um, I realized my mistake in the moment, and I scrambled to get my life back in order. So I had to work really hard, really hard this past week, which, in terms of timing, did not work out well for playoff basketball. So it seems like I've been gone for at least a week now, and inopportune timing as this has been arguably the most exciting first round series of all time. At least the most exciting in recent memory for me. There's been a lot of really impressive matchups, especially out west. But don't worry, we'll get into all of them a little bit because first today I want to touch upon upcoming game sevens. We have a game seven matchup today. Nuggets against Clippers. Clippers at home. Very exciting stuff. We just watched another epic game, another epic showdown between the Warriors and the Houston Rockets last night to tie up the series 3-3. The Warriors could not mount a big enough of a comeback to overcome the Houston Rockets, who seem to be taking over the series. They'll ultimately match up in a couple of days for their game seven as well. Sorry, tomorrow for their game seven as well. But I wanted to get into that a little bit. It has been a wild series, especially with Golden State going up 3-1 at one point, and seeming like they were going to take this one away, making the Rockets look like the younger team, the less experienced team, the team who wasn't ready for the moment. Now, I don't know if you remember from Ronnie and I's predictions early on before the playoffs started, but he and I did agree upon the Rockets winning in seven, and a lot of that was just based on the fact that they're a deeper team. Both teams have really solid defense, but I would say the better defensive team overall. A younger team and just a scrappier team, and are just able to throw a lot more at this Warriors team, I think, than what they have available to them. Now, as the Warriors seem to start to dominate the series, it was looking like my prediction was gonna be faulty, but the whole time I was thinking, if this gets to six, I do not like this for the Warriors, and here we are. So, getting into last night's matchup, the Rockets seem to have the advantage early on, and really they've just been falling back on the things that have made them great this season. Offensive rebounding being very key for them. Obviously, Steven Adams has been a big part of that, and the basis for the hack of Adams that the Warriors have tried to employ throughout the series to try to get him off the court. You can kind of tell that the Warriors are just kind of like swarming the hoop on defensive rebounds these days, packing like four guys around the basket to try to clutter it up as much as possible, make it as difficult for some of the bigger guys on the Rocket squad, and also just to kind of prevent even a flying offensive rebound from the athletic Amen Thompson. And it just really hasn't been enough. They're still overall dominating on the offensive glass, giving themselves extra possessions. I think the Warriors are holding their own fairly well. But it's just too much for them. And then Steph, he has been a superhero this series. He's reminding us that he's one of the best ever, and that a guy of this caliber can hit that next gear, and showing us what that looks like. And there's not a lot of guys who can do that, and not every squad in this playoffs has a guy like that. And it's incredible that we're watching 37-year old Steph Curry still pull these games out. Now, I know that like some of his scoring totals overall haven't been super impressive, but in these high defensive effort, low scoring games, lower efficiency games, these points truly come at a premium. And I mean, so when he drops 37 against the Warriors, that's it's inflated to more than 37, right? It's a bigger number than that in reality relative to the rest of the scoring that's going on. Some of the shot making has just been absolutely incredible, and that wasn't spared last night. I mean, I know overall he had an inefficient game, going 6 for 16 from three, 29 points on 23 field goal attempts, but a lot of those were late misses. A lot of those were hero ball attempts that just didn't quite fall for them. Because prior to that, he was knocking down shots and big shots. I feel like as the games have gone on, particularly last night, that the Rockets have been making it a little bit tougher for him to get to the rim, which is where he was hurting them a couple games before that. When it comes to other options that the Warriors have, obviously they're looking to Jimmy Butler to be that number two guy, and I'd say overall he's been pretty sufficient, but he's relying very heavily on getting to the free throw line. 12 of 14 last night from the free throw line. It still seems like some of his shot making that we've seen in playoff settings before is just not quite up to Jimmy's standards. And I mean, obviously we can always use age as the big variable there. That said, we're getting beyond that, and once again, it seems like we're just coming up short on who's going to be that next guy for them. I mean, if Buddy Hield's going to essentially play himself off the court, if he's not scoring, he's not playing. Just because he just doesn't have enough versatility to his game to really otherwise stay out there for them. I mean, 0 for 4 last night overall. He only played 17 minutes. And then when you're getting to other guys like Brandon Pajemski, for example, who just kind of looks a little bit like he's afraid of the moment sometimes, a little bit of a hitch in his jumper. I feel like even in the second quarter he took this like extra step before getting off the shot, and he kind of flicked it. He sort of rushed the release and rimmed out. We're seeing a lot of things like that, and the officiating of this series has just been absolutely wild. I mean, this is kind of across the board throughout the playoffs. I think Ronnie and I were talking about this before, that I almost feel like it has to taper down a little bit. Maybe even is starting to already, but yeah, a lot of physical play, a lot of sort of old school looking moments, the way guys are getting tossed around, and I almost feel like that has worked for advantage Warriors, because obviously they've been in these playoff settings before, and I think between the two, Draymond and Dylan Brooks, I think the Warriors have the edge on who's the crazier guy that they have on the court, and obviously he's trying to get away with a lot, not just him either, and it has sort of turned the momentum for them at times, but. And I think, honestly, I really think that the sort of the punch in the face that this change in tempo, this change in physicality has really been for the Rockets, is in large part why the Warriors were able to get up in the series early on. But they're definitely finding their groove now. I did want to actually mention really quick that I'm starting to see, I feel like, more and more this like transformation of the Draymond Green, Jimmy Butler defense, where they at times will like come in and out of these modified zones, it'll seem like they're just like leaving like Dylan Brooks, for example, wide open in the corner, but then by the time the ball moves around, he's totally covered. See a little bit of a two-man game on defense there, which is kind of cool. It's very cool to watch. Try to zoom in on that if you can when you're watching this game seven tomorrow. Uh, but coming over to the Rockets here, Freddie Van All-Star, whatever shooting woes he had in the first few games, he has figured it out these last three. It seems like his shooting percentage just keeps getting better and better, and just the shot making in general. I mean, he's heaving these things up, and almost as if to like prove a point of like anything you can do, I can do better. Um, and is going toe for toe with a lot of the big shots that are coming from the Warriors, regardless of who's firing them up. I mean, I feel like there was this one shot where Jimmy did this sort of like this like this like uncharacteristic turnaround three pointer. He may even got a foul on it, and then on the next possession, Fred VanVleet had a very similar bucket. He didn't get the foul on that one, but yeah, it was pretty spectacular. Um, just in general, I feel like we're seeing a change in attitude and therefore a change in momentum from this Rocket squad. Jalen Green has had a bit of a rocky series. He had one really solid game in there where it felt like it couldn't miss, and that ended up being one of the Rockets' big wins to get him back up in the series. Last night, offensively, just okay, 12 points on 11 field goal attempts. Um, you know, I mean, credit to him. He's keeping himself on the floor. Obviously he's making a big impact with his athleticism. I mean, him getting 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and even a block shot is going to be key coming down the stretch for these Rockets. Kind of just filling in the gaps. If the shot's not falling, do a little bit of everything else that you can. I think in general, I really like the Rockets' chances in Game 7 here. And any sort of winner takes all, I know most folks are going to lean towards the tried and true superstar type player of the squad with the superstar type player, and that's fair. I mean, we can see a huge outing from Steph on Sunday, which could steal the game for them. I mean, we've seen him do it before. Um, I would love to see it again, if I'm being honest, as just an NBA fan in general. But I'm getting to the point where with these last two wins that the Rockets have sort of, perhaps you can say, figured out the Warriors, or at least they have a game plan that's really working for them, and they're not looking scared anymore. And yeah, ultimately they're sticking to what they're good at to outperform Golden State. And so obviously I made my prediction at the beginning of the series. It ended up going a game longer than I thought it did, but I'm gonna stick with it, and can't wait to see what happens next. And now let's talk about the Game 7 that's going on tonight. The Clippers at Nuggets. This series had Game 7 written all over it. Going back to our previous episode with Ronnie, we both thought it was going 7. We both picked Nuggets, which is interesting. A lot of times he kind of likes to oppose me at times, just for fun. And so I'm surprised he didn't pick Clippers. And you know what? He might be sorry. He might be sorry that he didn't this time. Obviously, I'm not. I don't often hide the fact that I'm a big Joker fan, and therefore, by extension, a part of me emotionally gets attached to the Nuggets. But that said, going into tonight, I really like what the Clippers have been doing, and kind of like the Rockets in the Warriors series, I really feel like the Clippers have the momentum going into this game. On Thursday, when they matched up, the Clippers essentially had control of that entire second half. It was really, the second half was about the Nuggets trying to claw their way back, and they did make a good run at one point in the fourth quarter. A lot of it was like fast break turnovers that sort of changed the tides, but it it didn't scare off the Clippers, and they were able to support their lead once again. A lot of big shot making down the stretch. Norm Powell, Norm Powell had a game. We were waiting for him to really stand out. I shouldn't say that. He's had a few good games, I would say, overall this series, but that third quarter for him was huge, and ended up being a big component of the swing that we saw. You know, we're seeing Zubats sort of subdue Jokic a little bit. I mean, we knew going into the series that Ivica Zubats, I'm sorry, was where's the jar? Where's the name jar? Ivica Zubats was one of the better defenders historically on Jokic, and you know, you might look at a guy's stat line and say 25, 7, and 8 on 50% shooting. That's really solid. You know, that's nothing to get upset about. But we all know that's subpar by Joker standards, especially for a guy who's won 3 MVPs, has had the best season of his career this year, not to mention a Finals MVP, and yeah, I mean, you see him working extra hard in the minutes that Zubats is on the floor to try to get around him. He seems like, I mean, for two giants out there, it seems like they can go toe to toe in terms of footwork. It's very, very impressive. Obviously, generally overall, Harden has. I mean, this may be the best playoff series he's ever had in his entire career. You know, he's known to kind of come up flat in the playoffs, and I think historically a lot of that was just because he would he was essentially setting scoring records throughout the season and doing things that we hadn't seen since, like, I don't know, Michael Jordan. And I think a lot of that was just his savviness with foul hunting. I'm pretty sure I've been on this rant before, and just how a lot of that seems to disappear in the playoffs. And obviously, since they've modified the way they officiate this past 2 seasons, maybe more like a season and a half. I feel like that did impact his game, but he sort of hit this new steady state, and I mean he's looking like the floor general that we all got to know. I think honestly he's probably been. I mean, you can say he's been the most sturdy presence for the Clippers throughout this playoff series, only rivaled by Kawhi, who's just a metronome of efficiency. Again, not necessarily huge scoring totals. I mean, he did obviously have a 39-point performance early on in the series, but a 39-point performance on. We went over this. I'm just like amazing shooting that night, but yeah, I mean, when in general, when you have a guy who on the floor who's gonna put up at least 20 points in a game for you, and do it on really high scoring efficiency. I mean, I don't know. I'm not looking at his total stats for the playoffs, but Kawhi's effective field goal percentage, I'm pretty sure, is just, I don't know, out of this world right now. Not to mention, I'm sure his true shooting percentage is nuts too. And when you have that sort of that constant, I mean, it's not a variable. I mean, at this point, it's like a coefficient. When you can plug that in to the equation every single time, night after night, it's always going to give you the advantage. And I know that a big part of it is just because the Denver, who has some guys to throw at them, but not really the perfect defensive matchup. You expect maybe a guy like Michael Porter Jr. to be able to step into those shoes and be a guy who bothers Kawhi, but I just don't think we're seeing it. And speaking of Michael Porter Jr., I think in general he's been having a rough series. He's kind of known to be an up and down player, and for him it's been a little bit more than that. It's been more like an up and down season, not just a series. So again, I mean, kind of like we talk about the Warriors with, like, you got Steph, who's going to score for you. You got Jimmy, who's probably going to score pretty well for you. Who's after that? It's coming back to the Nuggets. The same thing. It's like we know Jokic is going to he's going to throw together impressive games, but when you can diminish them a little bit, it's that same tale over and over again. Who's gonna pop? Who's gonna pop that night? I mean, I think overall, I would say Jamal Murray has had a solid series. Not every game has been impressive for him, but I mean, shoot, he dropped 43 points against their last win against the Clippers. Um, the one that gave him the 3-2 series lead. That was actually a really good game to watch for Jamal Murray. But yeah, I mean, is he gonna have another standout performance? Are we gonna see consistency up and down the roster? Are we gonna see Russell Westbrook not make too many mistakes down the stretch? Is he gonna miss more layups in the fourth quarter? There's a lot of questions going into this game. Um, it's quite the battle between a number of guys who we've seen perform well in the playoffs and regular season. I mean, just the names that you can throw out there. It's tough to make a prediction in this game. It really is. I mean, I'm very excited for it. We just sort of have to see it play out because as I've been alluding to this whole time, who's going to be the guy that pops? What's the game plan going to be overall? This has been probably, I would say, like one of like the higher IQ series I've seen in a while, because of because of what I just mentioned about just having so many solid players on the floor at one time, especially offensively. I think perhaps a strategy that the Nuggets have to try to employ is to get some of these guys into foul trouble, particularly Zubats. Um, I mean, obviously, any of their best defenders, they'd be happy to see have less minutes. But yeah, if I mean, I think their best route is to just really try to take it to the hole and make it difficult for the Clippers to win. With their defensive game. 2 nights ago, the Nuggets shot 9 free throws and got 6 points out of that. It's just not going to be enough. If Ty Lue can put any of those guys out there in any combination he wants at any time and is not having to worry about any restrictions, if you're not forcing them to make any modifications, then I think they just have a slightly deeper team, at least in terms of top end talent. And so, going into the series, I made my prediction: Nuggets in 7. I'm sticking with it, but I think I do think that the Clippers are the favorable team here. At risk of being a bad co-host, I was also gonna run through some of the predictions that Ronnie and I made pre first round here. Sorry, Ronnie, that's what you get for being absent today. I'm not going to be flexible on this one, though. So, just to recap, the Cavs slaughtered the Heat. They really showed us that they look like a team to beat in this playoffs. Um, I mean, they had a really huge point differential. Obviously, a lot of that was the historically large win that they had in Game 4. I picked Cavs in 4. Ronnie picked Cavs in 5. I don't know why he had any doubts. All right, we talked at length, perhaps too long, about the East play-in teams and just the overall lack of confidence that I had in them. And then staying out east, the Celtics against the Magic. It took 5. Uh, I had a sweep on that series too. Ronnie took 6, so split the difference in reality. That was an interesting series in that the Magic actually kept things pretty close for a lot of those minutes. Obviously, the Magic stole Game 3, I believe, off the top of my head. And I was looking into it, and if you take Game 3 out of the picture, the remaining 4 games, the Celtics had a +8 point differential at the end of the first half against the Magic. The Magic were hanging in that first half every single time. I remove. I'm sorry. I take that back. +5. It was +5 in those 4 games that the Celtics had a point differential after the first half over the Magic. The reason I removed Game 3 out of it is because the Celtics actually had their biggest lead at half in that game and ended up losing it. I did like what the Magic were able to put together. You know, being a 500 team this past season for them, I don't think was a true win total reflecting where they are currently. Obviously, injuries played a big part in that. Not having Jalen Suggs at this point played a big part in that. You know, obviously a bright future for that team. Me and many other people certainly feel that they're missing. There's a missing piece there. You know, they need that one extra guy to go along with that very well coached defensive group to help really spark that offense. Although that said, I really liked a lot of the shot making from Paulo Banchero in these playoff games. He was taking a lot of tough shots and shots that you could argue were pretty bad, but I think a big part of that is just because the Magic didn't really have a lot of other options. And some of those games, he looked incredibly impressive. He was dropping like 30-point games on pretty efficient shooting, and obviously we know he's a good two-way player, and in general the Magic to go along with the Magic's great defense. And so I think maybe Boston sort of fell asleep a little bit during that series. At least that's what I'm thinking. And going up against this younger team, I don't know that they were willing to exert the energy required to really get the sweep, and so I think that's why a lot of these games stayed close, and even the Magic even stole a win out of it. But I don't mean to take credit away from the Magic, who played very, very well, very, very good first round series for them. Can't wait to see more. And then I guess I'll mention real quick the one of the more thrilling series in the first round, the Knicks Pistons, who I picked Knicks in 6. Holla. Ronnie picked Pistons in 7. Just based on preseason prediction guilt primarily. Don't get me wrong, the Pistons also, for a young team, looked absolutely spectacular. Cade Cunningham, he's the real deal. Detroit fans out there, you are lucky. You are, I think, the next 5 years of this franchise, health permitting, is going to be very, very exciting. Adding obviously veteran players to this roster was important for them. It turned out to be a great move overall. I think they could perhaps develop off that concept a little bit more. I do think that they're a team that could use just a little bit of tinkering. If you can give Cade Cunningham a true co-star, especially a big man, and I don't mean to take anything away from Jalen Duren, who I think is a spectacular player. I think he had a decent series. He's not somebody you want to mess with. I think he made a lot of those Knicks players look small out there. And I mean, he's a big guy. He's 6'11", 6'10", stocky, athletic center. But yeah, I would love to just see perhaps a lengthy co-star next to Cade Cunningham. I think that would make a whirlwind of difference. Who knows? Maybe they end up having a big off season. Maybe they don't make the big move yet, and they wanna let these guys develop and grow more together. Maybe I'm totally wrong, and all they have to do is build from within, and they're going to be a 50-win team next year who makes it to the conference finals. We shall see. But I do think that the future is very bright for the Pistons. They were certainly able to hold their own against the Knicks. The Knicks just had too much firepower. I mean, good for the Knicks, because had they lost this series, it would have been one of the biggest disappointments, one of the biggest busts in terms of what a team did to put together a roster the season, the offseason prior, the amount of money they spent, the amount of draft capital that they offloaded to get their squad that they want for the next few years here. And so, yeah, I mean, you need to see at least one playoff series win in the first year to not start to raise eyebrows and make people hit the panic button. So, but the Knicks, they will be facing the Celtics, and it's it's notable that the Knicks, obviously, they did not win against any of the top 3 teams. I think it even goes a little bit further than that. I don't have the stat in front of me, but they certainly didn't win against the Celtics this past season. I'm betting that the Knicks have a little bit of momentum going into the series, and they're able to to make some noise. They're going to be able to make it a little bit competitive. I don't think it's going to be just like a 4 game trounce from the Celtics, but I won't get into predictions too much. We'll keep going on the line here. Pacers Bucks. Ronnie said Pacers in 6. Bobby said Pacers in 5. Can I get another holla? Yeah, I when I learned so we made these predictions before I learned about Dame coming back. I think the rest of the world knew about Dame coming back before I did. I don't know how I missed that by a couple days, but then I texted Ronnie in a frantically saying, I wait, Dame's coming back. I want Pacers in 6, Pacers in 6. Let me change my prediction, and then I realized that it wasn't going to be for the first game. It may have not even been for the second game. He ended up coming back in game 2, and um, but sadly, Dame went down with that Achilles tear. I mean, it looked like an Achilles tear through and through from the moment it happened. Just like pain that seems to go away. Suddenly he looks very comfortable, but can't get up. Pushing off the back foot, just a classic Achilles injury. It is. It's going to be scary for the Bucks moving forward. Everybody's saying that this is the end of an era. It's time to move off Giannis. This is going to be probably the biggest story in this off season, honestly. And I'm hopping on that train. I really think that if there was ever a time for the Bucks to decide that we've had our good run with our franchise's best or second best player, depending on how you want to rank him and Lou Alcindor for the time that he was there, um, we've exhausted all of our efforts, all of our resources to try to keep this guy around, to keep putting together winning seasons, and it has been an extraordinarily successful run. I know, one ring seems like a small amount these days to people, but it's for a franchise like that, that really goes a long way, especially since it was the first one they had in 50 years, um, and yeah, I mean, what makes this even a little bit scarier is that Dame's extension that he received from Portland before requesting the trade, which is over $60 million for the next 2 years, starts this season. So he's going to be the next richest player who is likely going to be making a lot of money while rehabbing a season-ending injury. Um, and I mean, next season. There's a chance that he could return. There's a chance that they can move off of him, before the trade deadline, and a team is willing to take that chance, willing to take on a salary for a season and change, and to just bet on to see what kind of player he is when he comes back. Um, I don't know that he's going to be able to get to the level that he has been in the past. Certainly, as time has gone on, and as as smaller guards tend to play out their careers, as they age, they're not always. It's one of the harder archetypes to keep up with longevity. Steph is certainly breaking that, but he's also the greatest person to ever shoot a basketball. So unless you have that level of quality, it's really tough to keep up with age when you're these like 6'3", 6'4", or less type players, which is crazy to say, but it is true, and we've seen it play out time and time again. And now coming off of an injury this serious, that's gonna keep him off of away from the court as long as he is. I think it's gonna be tough to come from. Granted, they said the same thing about Kobe. I know Dame's not Kobe, but they had these injuries very similar points in their career, and Kobe was great when he came back. He didn't have as many opportunities to win as he did pre-injury, but all I can say is my heart goes out to Damian Lillard. You've been nothing but less than spectacular to watch. I really hope that your recovery goes well and is speedy, and we get to see
the Dame Lillard that we've gotten to know and love over these years come back again. So at least a version that's close to it. I don't know if he's going to be a buck for the next 2 years, but I do hope that he is able to find himself in another winning situation in the future. Regardless of where this Bucks franchise ends up going. Sorry, that was a very long tangent, but a very important one. And at any rate, so the Pacers will be facing the Cavs in round two here. I think that will prove to be a competitive series as well. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Um, they they start. They're the first. They're the first second round series to start. They play their first game tomorrow, on the same day as the other game seven series between. Or sorry, the other game seven between the Warriors and the Rockets. So if just in case Ronnie and I don't get to that to our second round predictions before that game, we will hopefully that night or the day after, ahead of the rest of the games. But the NBA might be able to squeeze out one before we get a chance to talk again in front of a camera. So anyway, going down the line, OKC Grizzlies. Uh, you know that series perhaps slightly more competitive than Cavs Heat. But yeah, OKC obviously dominated and not the best series from Shea. I'm curious to see how he bounces back because I think OKC is going to need they're going to need regular season Shea in that series. This is again, you hear me talk about this with a number of guys. I talked about it during this episode with Harden. A lot of his game in terms of getting to those super high scoring numbers, well, hitting the 30s and 40s consistently, um, is predicated on him getting to the line. And if they're going to keep calling these series very physical and the opposing team is going to keep targeting him and making his life difficult without conveying fouls, then it might be a little bit more of a grind for the 68 win OKC Thunder than previously predicted. But obviously they were able to take the sweep on Memphis here. Also, an unfortunate ending for Ja. That guy, man, he just I really hope to see him string together a healthy next few seasons. There's a lot of mystery up in the air for the Memphis Grizzlies as well. I think they'll be another fun team to talk about this offseason just because they've been kind of hanging out in this like good not great limbo for the past few seasons, which is fine when you're in the early rebuilding or when you're in the early building phases. But they've gotten to a point where it's time to break through. It's time to get to the next level here, and I don't know how they do that. It'll be very interesting. And then obviously the other West series that is completed, the Lakers and T Wolves. Ronnie picked T Wolves in 7. Should have had more faith, my friend. I picked T Wolves in 6. Same goes to me. T Wolves in 5. Sorry, I didn't have a good rhyme for you on that one. I'm not really good at that stuff. I'm not a poet. I can barely talk on camera, as you guys can see. But yeah, I mean the only reason I even picked T Wolves in 6 and not something more aggressive than that was because I assumed that at least a few of these games were going to be very close. And when you have LeBron and Luka on your team, I'm gonna say perhaps advantage Lakers in crunch time minutes because we know that those guys can close those games. But yeah, I was not getting enough credit to the Wolves, who certainly, just putting aside your ideas of LeBron, Luka, and I guess Dawson Reeves as their big three. The T Wolves, they have continuity. They have a real team. They've actually filled every position on the roster. Believe it or not, it's people seem to forget that the Lakers, being a 3 seed, did not even have what would be considered under most circumstances a full roster. Because they were having to play 6-8 guys throughout the entire series at center. And so, they were able to pull it out. I think Ant Edwards, maybe not the most efficient series. He obviously had a couple of really good games in there. What was that, a 43-point game that he had in game four? Is that right? Um, to really put the exclamation point on things. And then, I mean, actually, the exclamation point award may go to Rudy Gobert, who had the 2020 game to close the series. So the Wolves have been riding a lot of momentum since the All Star break, and it has clearly continued into the playoffs. They are going to be a tough matchup for whoever they face next. It's going to be it's not going to be easy for the Rockets or the Warriors. I mean, I might end up picking the T Wolves. I don't want to get into it. I don't want to get into it too much too early. I gotta wait for my co-host here on that one. I think I'm already being mean enough to him as it is. But yeah, really exciting stuff. Really exciting stuff ahead. Real quick, I guess we could touch on predictions. Ronnie and I both picked um, Rockets in seven, and yeah, we'll see how that one plays out. A couple nights, and then Ronnie picked Clippers in six, which I think you heard me talk about this already. He might end up winning the team anyway. But I picked Nugs in six. We both got the number of games wrong. Um, can I just go and say real quick that if we're going to assume that the Rockets win in a couple nights, I mean, I'm going to toot my own horn here, but let's see. I'm counting here. I got the Cavs series and number of games correct. I got Boston right. I mean, no brainer there. But I was off on the games by one. I got the Knicks and number of games correct. I got the Pacers and number of games correct. I got OKC and number of games correct. I might get the Rockets and number of games correct. I got the Wolves, but number of games wrong. And then, you know, tonight Nuggets Clippers. Or Clippers at Nuggets rather. I'm sticking with Nugs six, but sorry, I think I even said Nugs in seven earlier in the episode. I'm gonna correct myself here. Um, but hopefully I get the team right, even if I'm not gonna get the number of games correctly. But can I just give myself a round of applause here? I wish there was a better echo in this room so you can hear more claps. Yeah, I should have put money. I should have put my money where my mouth is on this. I would have won. I would have won. I hope you guys use my predictions. I hope somebody tell me in the comments, shoot us a post, shoot us an email, shoot us a video even. I don't care. Whatever it is the kids do these days. A tweet. I don't know. Tell us if you actually took our predictions to the bank, and if anybody cashed out on that, because if you're welcome. And also, I think we do deserve at least 10%. And I'm just letting you know the proceeds go to regular season tickets. So it'll be obviously well spent. It'll make us very happy. It'll get us in the game, in the action a little bit better. But as always, thank you everybody for listening. This has been a fun experience recording on my own. I will try to be better about it in the future, and not burden you guys with my rambling too much. We'll try to get Ronnie back on here next time. Hopefully this has been as enjoyable for you as it was for me. As always, give us the likes, give us the comments, watch us on all the socials, all the video, all the video medium. I think, what do we got? YouTube, TikTok. Can I say Instagram? I need Ronnie here. Obviously Apple Podcasts, Spotify. If you don't feel like looking at my ugly mug. But yeah, this has been another episode of the Bucket Bros. Hoping to tune in soon. Ciao.